Before we start the video, I want you to subscribe to the best Telegram channel at the first link in the description, where we show our earnings on cryptocurrencies, and not only, our capital that we manage is more than $3 million. Here you will find only the most useful. Thanks for subscribing. Also in the description is a links to verified exchangers, when you register on which, you get a welcome bonus from me. Let's get to the video. Friends, as soon as this Thursday, the USA national debt will exceed the $31.4 trillion limit, after which the Treasury will no longer be able to borrow money, funding for the political apparatus will cease, and the USA will be one step away from default. This is not the first time such a situation has arisen, and it can be solved by a single political decision. The question is, how quickly will it be made? And how will it affect the financial markets? Let's look into it. We can look at some things for an infinite amount of time, and one of them is how the USA national debt is growing. According to this website, it has already gone over the ceiling of $314 billion, but that's not the official data. And here's the official data from the Treasury Department, the head of which, Janet Yellen, warned Congress on Friday that the debt ceiling would be reached this Thursday, January 19th. Let's step back a little bit, and I'll explain how the USA got such a huge national debt in the first place, and why it's considered normal. Ever since the gold standard was abolished and the dollar became the world's reserve currency, the USA has been able to print unlimited amounts of dollars. That is, if the Treasury needs money, they can go out into the debt market and borrow the right amount, and if no one is willing to lend, then the Fed will simply print the necessary amount of dollars. It will lend the money to the banks, and the banks will buy back the Treasury bonds. This is an extremely simplistic scheme, but even it looks like one big hoax, and in order to keep these processes in check, a national debt limit was introduced. Technically, this means that the USA does not just print money out of thin air, but issues as much currency as their economy nominally provides. But since it's impossible to keep from printing money when you can, the USA has many times in its history faced the debt limit, and it has become a problem. After all financial activity actually stops, and without borrowing some more money, the Treasury can't pay current expenses and debts. So, every time in this situation, Congress would vote, and the President would sign legislation to increase the national debt limit by another couple of $1 trillion, and the system would restart. To clarify, I am not going to tell you now the popular theories about how the USA has inflated the financial bubble and it will burst, and the dollar will disappear. I just explained as simply as possible the origin of the national debt of over $31 trillion, and already getting ahead of ourselves, we can say that USA will not disappear, the dollar will not collapse, and all we will get is another decision to raise the limit. Here are the statements made by the current Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, regarding this situation. Failure to meet the government's obligations will cause irreparable damage to the USA economy, to the livelihoods of all Americans, and to global financial stability. Although everyone understands that in any case, politicians will reach an agreement and the necessary legislation will be adopted, but until it happens, the financial markets can expect a period of unpredictable volatility. So Yellen adds, I respectfully urge Congress to act now to protect the full faith and credit of the USA. True. Before this call, she also said that the Treasury has several $100 billion set aside for a rainy day, which they will use after Thursday, and the default situation won't become critical until a few months from now. It is unlikely that the cash and emergency measures will be exhausted before early June. The Democratic Party has already declared itself ready to vote tomorrow to raise the national debt. McCarthy, the Republican Speaker of Congress who, after being elected last fall, gained a majority in one of the houses of Parliament, also formally supported the idea. But there's a nuance. The election, the Republicans, according to many experts, actually lost, and it's extremely important for them now to win political points before the presidential election in 2024. The national debt story is a great opportunity to make Democrats look like bad economists. Therefore, it is possible that before the debt limit is raised, there will be some demands from the Republicans to cut spending. The Democrats, of course, will not agree at first, and then a protracted haggling process will begin. As I said, there's not enough time until summer, and so this political battle could have a very serious impact on financial markets, from stocks to Bitcoin. To understand what could happen in the coming days, you just have to go back a few years to the time of the Trump presidency. We'll do that right now, but first, I'll remind you that you can always find the latest breaking news on cryptocurrencies and big finance in our channel on Telegram. You can subscribe at the link right below the video. In this chart, you can see how the S&P 500 index fell 20% at the end of 2018. The reason for that was the same national debt limit that Congress couldn't raise in advance, because, at that point, Trump was a so-called lame duck. That's when the president represents one party and the other party has a majority in Congress. And if you dive even further back in history, the Fed was then also conducting a period of rate hikes, and the political crisis went so far that USA government operations were paralyzed for 35 days, with 380,000 federal employees, in fact, being temporarily laid off, because, trivially, there was no money to fund their positions. But it is the financial markets that interest us, and in drawing parallels to that time, we can note the following things. First, back then the United States was not in a financial crisis and was not expecting a recession any day now. In fact, the fall in stocks took place precisely against the backdrop of political bickering. And now Biden is already acting as a lame duck. After all, Republicans have a majority in one of the houses of Congress. Fears over political turmoil led people to simply start going into cash, i.e., dollars, and as a consequence, stocks fell 20%, and on Bitcoin, we drew a bottom at $3,200 at the end of 2018, moment number 2. Now the Fed is also dealing with a rate hike, but it's actually already twice as high as it was at the end of 2019, and as we know, the higher the rate, the more expensive it is for the Treasury to service the national debt, so the period when they run out of stash after the 19th could be over many times faster than expected. I wrote on Telegram over the weekend that Elon Musk also posted a Fed rate chart, only he was concerned about the end of 2009. It's about the fact that the Fed then went sharply down in rate cuts, effectively extinguishing the fire of the financial crisis with freshly printed dollars, and he wonders how low we could have fallen had that not been done. Musk is no longer the richest man in the world, and he is now the top one in the world who has lost the most money in one bear market, except the Fed is unlikely to listen to him, and until they get a handle on inflation, we can't count on the printing press turning on. According to the Fed themselves, a rate cut is not expected before 2024. All in all, we have a potential political crisis, which will lead to the growth of the dollar and hit the S&P 500 and Bitcoin, which is already in a bearish trend, and only last week showed the first hints of returning to growth. That said, the Fed, albeit slowly, is going to continue to raise rates and keep them high. I'm not giving financial advice and I'm not going to scare anyone, but a potential minus 20% for the S&P 500 and Bitcoin from their current values, in case a showdown starts in Congress over the debt ceiling, is a very likely scenario in the current environment. We just have to count on politicians suddenly showing solidarity and coming to a quick agreement. Please like the video if it was helpful to you, and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss new videos. Thanks for watching, your Cryptanic.